And welcome to Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Two of the most iconic franchises in baseball. The St. Louis Cardinals are here in Los Angeles, but they have lost the first two games of this series to the LA Dodgers. Matt Holliday and company looking to avoid a sweep. Justin Turner of the Dodgers looking to sweep the series and extend their winning streak to 4 overall. Never too early to look at the standings. These two teams have similar records within a game of each other, but very different situations because the Cardinals have the misfortune of playing in the Central. Although the Cubs did lose a game today, the Dodgers just a half game out of first because the Giants won. They swept Arizona. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Los Angeles. Glad you're with us. Dan Shulman, Jessica Mendoza, and Aaron Boone. Let's start with the Cardinals. They are second in the National League in runs scored. They've been a terrific offensive team so far this year, but there's kind of a hot and cold aspect to this offense this year.
There sure is, Dan. In a lot of ways, they've been one of the best offenses in the game, and statistics will play that out. They're third in all of Major League Baseball in runs per game at 5.6, but it's also been a very polarizing group. Very hot and cold, like you said, Dan. 12 times they've scored 8 or more runs in a ball game. That by far leads Major League Baseball. But only the Padres have scored 1 or 0 runs more often than the Cardinals. They got another tough assignment tonight because they have struggled a little bit against left-handed pitching. Haven't been as strong as they have against righties. And if they're going to climb back into the Central, they're going to have to do it against this Dodger team that's throwing another lefty at them in Alex Wood. So they need to start to right that ship to get going north of 500.
All right, let's talk about the Dodgers now. Everybody knows about the big payroll, the big expectations, and so on. But, Jess, what's the identity of this team right now?
Who is this Dodgers team? When you think about last season, they were two dominant pitchers in Greinke and Kershaw. Offensively, they were a power team leading the NL in home runs. But this season, it's a different story. They're an evolving door of rotations. What has been their constant? Outside of Yasiel Puig, Gonzalez, Corey Seager, it has been an evolution of different guys at different positions every single game. 30 different lineups in the first 37 games heading into tonight. Dave Roberts has admitted this has been hard because there hasn't been the constant, but this is who this team is. So when you ask who are the Dodgers, it is a team that's going to have depth, but good or bad, they are going to have different lineups every single game.
Well, as close to a constant as they have, certainly going into the future, that'll be the case as Corey Seager. For more on their 22-year-old shortstop, here's Buster Olney.
Yeah, Dan, at such a young age, he is the Dodgers' everyday shortstop, and teammates talk about his poise. They talk about his control, which lately has been extended to his at-bats. In April, opposing pitchers seem to be taking advantage of the fact that he can be aggressive at the plate. In the month of May, he's been a lot better, a lot more selective, hitting .357, 4 doubles, and 2 homers. Manager Dave Roberts says as the game goes along, his at-bats seem to get better. Dan, back to you.
Buster, thank you very much. Left-hander Alex Wood is on the mound for the Dodgers tonight. He has struck out 25 in his last 3 starts, trying to pitch the Dodgers to a sweep over the Cardinals here tonight. crunch and cheesy double beef burritos. And in part by AARP, real possibilities. By Taco Bell's beefy crunch and cheesy double beef burritos, and in part by AARP, real possibilities. A little bit humid and overcast earlier today in LA, but that is gone now. We've got a nice night for a ball game of the Dodgers. Dave Roberts always has a lot of energy, brings a lot of energy to his team, and he's hoping that his team can complete the sweep as we show you the starting lineup for the St. Louis Cardinals tonight. As always, Jess, it's brought to you by Taco Bell.
Well, Matt Carpenter, the fire starter, leading off this lineup. He has been hot the last week. 4 of his 7 home runs coming in the last 8 games. And you move on down. Aledmus Diaz, he has been red hot. 423 the month of April. He's got 20 extra base hits and 11 Ks, leading the National League in OPS.
Left-hander Alex Wood will make his 8th start of the season for the Dodgers. He is 1-3 with a 4.58 ERA. But as we mentioned, he's been piling up the strikeouts recently, 25 in his last 3 starts. He came over in a deadline deal from Atlanta last year, and his numbers way better here at home at Dodger Stadium than they have been on the road so far this year. And Aaron, take us into the batter's box. It's a very unusual delivery. Lots of arms and legs coming at you.
Yeah, and what he's trying to do is create deception with that delivery. He's going to throw a fastball, both 2 and 4-seam fastball, curveball, and changeup. The key for Wood is keeping the ball down in the zone. And when he's down with the 2-seam fastball, he induces a lot of ground balls, 25 double play grounders a season ago, which was 3rd in the major leagues.
Matt Carpenter on his way to the plate. The Cardinal third baseman hitting .256 on the season. Says hello to Tom Hallion, the home plate umpire and the crew chief tonight. And we're just about ready to go here at Dodger Stadium. These teams have met in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. The Cardinals winning in both 2013 and 2014, knocking the Dodgers out. Matt Carpenter, of course, a big part of those teams. Dave Roberts, his first year as manager of the Dodgers. You hardly ever see this guy without a smile on his face. As Carpenter takes a first pitch strike. Alex Wood has given up only 1 home run to a left-handed batter in the last 2 years. 210 at-bats as that sweeping breaking ball misses outside, and it's a ball and a strike. In the air to right field and deep. Puig is still going back, and on the warning track about 3 feet shy of the fence will make the catch. That 1 home run in 2 years to a left-handed batter almost went right out the window in the early going there.
You know, if this was a day game and maybe a little warmer with the sun out, it tends to travel here at Dodger Stadium. Maybe would have rode that out. Went into the hot zone of Carpenter, but able to get in on him just enough.
So with 1 out here in the top of the first, here's Stephen Piscotty, the right fielder. He is hitting .315 on the season. One of the young players the Cardinals are so excited about. They have some turnover, it seems, from year to year, and they always seem to find a couple of good ones.
Piscotty, one of the few Cardinals that's really handled left-handed pitching so far this year. 400 batting average against lefties coming in.
Where do you go to school, Jess?
He's a Cardinal. Stanford. It's been nice to see his evolution, too, from his Stanford days. I remember watching him, and he was such a contact guy. Not a ton of power, still had it in him, but now able to do both and do it well. And when you watch his swing, he has such a long swing through the zone. He's able to make adjustments, but I spoke with him yesterday, and he talked about that fine line between kind of going all or nothing, sacrificing the strikeout versus just that put it in play mentality.
2-2 and a ground ball rolled over down to third. Turner's throw dug out by Gonzalez. Piscotty retired, 2 down. Early indications are the strike zone might be a little wide here tonight, and Alex Wood kind of playing to that against Piscotty.
Yeah, and keep an eye against the right-handed hitters for the Cardinals. That at bat against Piscotty, all fastballs to the outer half before that changeup had him out in front. Wood is a guy that will come in with the four-seam fastball to the right-handed hitters and try and establish a presence. So the fact that he's established a way and commanded it so far perhaps opens it up to be a factor on the other side of the plate.
So with 2 down, here's Matt Holliday. First pitch swinging, ground ball right at Seager. And it's a 3-up, 3-down inning for Alex Wood. To the bottom of the first at Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers coming up against Mike Leake when we come back. Cardinals and Dodgers here at Dodger Stadium, and time now to take a look at the starting lineup for the Dodgers, brought to you by Taco Bell.
Well, we highlight Adrian Gonzalez in the 4-hole. It's been a little power outage for him. A couple of doubles a few days ago and a home run that snapped the 19-game drought in last night's ball game as he went out the other way, hoping it starts an extra base hit cycle for him. And Yasiel Puig, 0 walks in his last 71 plate appearances. They're hoping he can get on track offensively, because when he gets hot, he can carry a club.
On the mound for the Cardinals tonight, right-hander Mike Leake, a free agent in the offseason, signed a 5-year, $80 million contract. The ERA over 5, although he is coming off his best start of the season. That was against the Angels on Tuesday, when he went 8 innings, gave up just 1 run. He will face Chase Utley, Corey Seager, and Justin Turner here in the first inning. Utley's having himself a heck of a year. He's hitting .291. His on-base percentage is .395 for a guy who has never really been a leadoff hitter, just a few games here and there in his career. He's led off more this season, way more this season, than he ever had in his career in total before, and he seems to have adjusted to it nicely. Leak in there with a strike, and it's 2-1.
You know, Jess talked about all the different options every night for the Dodgers. Chase Utley, one of those everyday players now later in his career that I think has benefited from those days off.
Ground ball out to second. Up with it, Wong, and on to first, one down. Well, here's a guy who plays every day and is going to be a star for the LA Dodgers. 22-year-old Corey Seager. He's hitting over 350 in the month of May, 283 overall. And as much as they like the talent, they like the poise and the maturity and what a good teammate he is and so on about Seager just as much. Grew up in a baseball family like you do. He's got two older brothers. Kyle, of course, plays for Seattle. Got another brother, Justin, who's in the Mariners minor league system. And yes, he also has a lot of talent.
But there's always been a comfort, ever since he got brought up last year, and I think that's part of the fact that he's got big bro Kyle and the bigs, understands the day-to-day, the maturity, the process, and that's probably his biggest asset in his young career early on. That all of his teammates, his manager, talks about is the fact that he knows how to handle himself. He knows how to play the game, and the mechanics, everything else is great. It's maturity.
And both two hitters tonight, Seager and we saw Piscotty, there's kind of a maturity to their game and an advancement to their game. They play like really good veteran players, really good veteran hitters, and it shows up day in and day out in their approach at the plate. Both are going to be around for a long time.
So two quick outs for Mike Leake, and now he starts Justin Turner with a strike. Turner, the number 3 hitter and third baseman for the Dodgers, coming off season knee surgery, very serious surgery, a microfracture procedure. And again, both pitchers are taking advantage of this outside corner to the right-handed batters. According to K-Zone, it has been a generous strike zone so far from Tom Hallion, and both pitchers trying to exploit that. And we've seen a couple of hitters look back and question Hallion already. They're going away again, and Turner just kind of volleys it into right center field for a base hit.
Well, Leake went with a breaking ball there. He throws sinker, cutter, changeup, and then slider and curveball somewhere in between there. That at 81 miles an hour. We've seen him throw fewer breaking balls this year than at any time in his career. There with 2 strikes, just gets too much of the plate. Probably a pitch that they wanted to start off the outs on the outer half and break off the plate to try and get a chase or some weak contact. Leake just left it on the plate, and the approach of Turner able to dump it into right.
Now 7 for 13 in his career against Leake. A base runner with 2 down for cleanup hitter Adrian Gonzalez. Gonzalez hitting a home run last night, his first home run since April the 22nd when he hit one at Colorado. In fact, he had gone a long stretch without even any extra base hits, but he's now got 2 doubles and a homer in his last 4 games. Turner without a stolen base on the season. Feels good about the fact they threw over, though. Gonzalez 8 for 20 now in his last 5 games, so he has started to pick it up, and you get the feeling one way or the other his numbers at the end of the year will be just about where you expect them to be. One of the more consistent hitters in baseball over the last decade plus.
He just got a pitch I think he wishes he had back. It was a cut fastball that caught a lot of the center of the plate, was elevated in the zone. He just fouled it off at 89 mile an hour to dig that hole.
Runner bluffs a start. It's a swing and a miss by Gonzalez to end the inning. So the Dodgers will leave a man on. We're at the end of 1 and no score here in LA between the Dodgers and the Cardinals. Night baseball on ESPN. Dan Schulman, Aaron Boone, Jessica Mendoza, Buster Olney. No score. Top of the second in the final game of the series with the Dodgers winning the first two. Dodgers with a win tonight would move back into a first place tie atop the NL West with the Giants, who swept a 4-game series from Arizona. Here's Randall Grichuk. Takes a strike to lead off the second against Alex Wood. Grichuk, Cardinals center fielder. Starting to come around, Mike Matheny feels. The power is there, but there's been a lot of swing and miss in his game. Average down at 216, although that has improved recently. Facing Alex Wood, as we discussed very briefly in the first inning, a very unusual motion. It looks normal until right there, when the left arm goes way around behind his back. Not many like him.
There's a look at that, kind of trying to give that hitter a different look. You see a lot of deception there. And this is that curveball that he buries at the back foot of the right-handed hitter. But definitely a motion you do not see very often, especially from a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball.
2-2 the count. So what do you look for as a hitter, Aaron? I mean, how do you find the release point?
Well, when you face him for the first time, it can be definitely a little bit tricky, but you try not to get distracted by all the moving parts. And the reality is that as a hitter, you're facing different motions, different kind of deception all the time. But I would imagine the first time you ever faced Alex Wood, it maybe takes a pitch or two to really get a feel for where that's coming from.
Well, and the irony is, as different as he is, he's someone that has really been unaware of a lot of his own mechanics until this season. In fact, just last week, or the last month, been working really hard on his stride foot, making sure he watched film of himself in the Colorado series. Something he picked up on his own was the fact that he just wasn't connected. His timing was off. So he really honed in on that stride foot too high off the ground to lower it. And he said, you know what, most times an adjustment's difficult, it takes time. This one was an easier adjustment, and I felt it immediately.
Like it.
See where he gets his foot, watch it kind of come down, stay low to the ground. He was getting that kick, that last little second part of that kick would get high off the ground, throw off his entire timing.
Strikes out Grichuk.
And what's the difference for this with him was really being able to get on top of the ball. And you can see April 19th, this is before that Colorado series. Look at where his foot is comparison to the ground as compared to now. So you see it higher off. You see that second part of the kick, the distance between his foot and the ground. Just like hitting, Booney, I mean, if you're not able to get that front foot down in connection with the rest of your body, it throws off your entire timing. For him, it was really about commanding that fastball low in the zone, and that's what he felt he was lacking the last month.
And ground balls has been a strength of his career. 25 ground balls into double plays a season ago. And by getting that front foot down earlier, in theory, it gets him on top of the ball better and throwing on more of a downhill angle, and as a result, attacking the bottom of the zone more consistently. Felt like he was making too many mistakes up above the zone. And there he makes a mistake. He wanted to go down and away with that, but you saw the ball was down. That time just pulled it across on the inner half a little bit.
0-2 pitch looped into left field. A base hit for Aledmys Diaz, a 25-year-old shortstop who defected from Cuba back in 2012 and really only getting a chance to play because of injuries to Johnny Peralta and then Ruben Tejada, and he's hitting about 380 right now after this base hit.
And look where he's fooled lower half, and he really just gets, watch where his legs go. His legs are gone, boom, but then he uses his hands, and he's really just throwing his hands to get off the end of the bat base hit. And this is where he's been consistent. I mean, trying to figure out a spot to throw him. He's hitting all pitches, all zones. It's early, but been able to adjust very well in his first season up in the bigs.
First base hit, first base runner of the night for the Cardinals, and the batter is Jeremy Hazelbaker, the left-handed batter, getting a start in left field tonight, thinking about bunting his way aboard. The Cardinals have Matt Holliday at first base tonight and Hazelbaker in left, so no Moss or Adams in the starting lineup for the Cardinals. And Hazelbaker, like Diaz, is a guy who has really opened up the eyes of Mike Matheny. Hazelbaker is a 28-year-old rookie, originally drafted by the Red Sox back in 2009. Also spent some time in the Dodgers system before signing as a minor league free agent with the Cardinals in May of last year. Had a good season in their system, a good winter, a good spring. And it went right down, Mike Matheny told us before the game, right down to the last inning of the last spring training game before the Cardinals decided that they were going to keep Hazelbaker. And he's hit 7 home runs this year, 3 of them pinch hit home runs.
And here you see him in against the lefties, hit .294, a couple of home runs off left-handed pitching. And Mike Matheny feels very good about throwing him in really against anyone. Talked about him probably being the best base runner, the best base stealer on this Cardinals team. And he has just kind of kicked his way into the lineup from day one of spring training without a realistic chance to really make the team going into spring training. He forced their hand, and now he's getting regular appearances on what should be a very good Cardinal team.
Runner goes, broken to bat, foul ball. Bats out by second base umpire Dan Molina, who didn't see it. He was turning around to look at a possible stolen base attempt at second, and just now has turned around and realized that most of the bat wound up just a couple of feet away from him.
Well, he sees that runner going, and he starts to pick up and get ready for that. Following the ball on the foul off. Fortunate that splintered bat didn't do some damage.
You guys were talking about Diaz and Hazelbaker. Think about this. Hazelbaker was a guy cut free last year by the Dodgers, signed with the Cardinals. Diaz last summer went through waivers. Any team could have claimed him for $20,000. Those two guys hitting 5 and 6 for the Cardinals in May of 2016.
Diaz with 20 extra base hits in 34 games this year. Hazelbaker, as mentioned, 7 home runs already.
That's what you think about with the Cardinals. I mean, they're last season too. And last night I remember Hazelbaker coming in off of Scott Kazmir. You mentioned 3 pinch hit home runs. This was a big one because this took Kazmir out of the game, and granted it was the 9th inning, but he had been cruising. All of a sudden Hazelbaker comes out of the dugout. You think lefty on lefty matchup. Boone, you mentioned it. He does very well against lefties, but this was a big moment last night because it forced the hand to bring in Jansen and not allow Kazmir to finish the game.
You know, Mike Matheny talked also about, you know, the things you watch about him that are impressive. It's one thing to go out and maybe catch lightning in a bottle and play well for an extended period, but just you watch him in batting practice. You watch how the ball comes off his bat. You watch him move around athletically, and everything suggests to you that, hey, this guy absolutely is a big leaguer, and he continues to prove that here in the middle of May.
How many bats has he got? He's gone. This is his 3rd already in this at bat.
Be home soon.
And that's a great 2-strike swing. I mean, to be able to adjust 82, you see the broken bats in the dugout. He's going a different color now, so maybe a type of wood, a little stronger.
He broke Old Hickory.
See if it's still his bat.
It might not even be his.
Someone else's name on there. See, with 2 strikes, though, he's shortening it up, at least with that last swing.
One thing the Cardinals are doing here, Grichuk struck out, but it was, I believe, a 9 or 10 pitch at bat, and then Diaz 2-strike hitting, flares a base hit. Now some foul balls with the 2 strikes on Hazelbaker. They're making Wood throw some pitches here. Popped up on the infield for out number 2. Aerial coverage tonight is being provided by Goodyear, covering the bases with tires for superior performance all season long. Goodyear, more driven.
I think that might have been bat number 3.
I think he got it the 3rd time, guys.
Yep. So 3 broken bats in 1 at bat for Jeremy Hazelbaker.
And he was using Eric Fryer's bat, who's on deck now.
Yeah, now he's going to start walking up and down the dugout saying, that's where guys are kind of looking away like, hey, man.
Can't help you. Colton Wong, the batter, the second baseman, hitting just .228 on the season. Yep. So the Eric Fryer bat joins a couple of old hickories down at the end of the dugout.
The graveyard. Wood's been doing a good job getting in on the hands, obviously, to Hazelbaker, where you see the contact is made, and that's why these bats are breaking. Borderline handle. He just kept coming there.
Breaking ball down and away, swung on and missed by Wong, who's got a look of frustration on his face. And again, Wood is out in front, no balls and 2 strikes on a Cardinal hitter. He's thrown 28 pitches tonight, 22 of them have been strikes. Buster, what do you hear about Colton Wong and the struggles that he's having so far this season?
Yeah, and talking with some members of the Cardinals organization, they feel like this is a guy who puts a lot of pressure on himself. Number one thing that brought Colton Wong to the big leagues, tremendous work ethic, but that sometimes can work against him. And of course, during the offseason, got a big contract from the Cardinals, maybe trying to live up to it.
Swing and a miss. Wood gets him. Second strikeout of the night, and the inning is over. To the bottom of the second. No score. Cardinals and Dodgers. Angeles, no score. Cardinals and Dodgers. Ledmus Diaz, 25-year-old shortstop for St. Louis, and he is the subject of this week's edition of the Mendoza Line.
Well, like most players from Cuba, he has had an interesting path to the bigs. August 1st, 1990, born in Santa Clara, Cuba, 3 houses down the street from Marlins pitcher Jose Fernandez. July 2012, he defected with the Cuban national team in a tournament in the Netherlands. Now, guys, it had been almost 2 years from when he defected to his signing in 2014 before he had played in a game. Made his debut just over a month ago. First major league rookie to hit 500 after his first 50 at-bats.
Fellow Cuban Yasmani Grandal with a fly ball into left for Hazelbaker, 1 down.
And besides his talents, we talked about his hitting. We've talked about a lot of what he can do. It's really his makeup that he's been credited a lot with, and that has been his father, Rigoberto, who actually was able to get a visa to travel outside of Cuba because of his job in agricultural science. So he was with him when I talked about almost those 2 years before he was able to sign. His dad was with him. That allowed him to kind of have that steady presence, allowed him to stay calm in a time that he said was the most difficult time of his life. And he also traveled with him through that first year in the minor leagues. A big part of his credit goes to the fact that he had his father with him.
Howie Kendrick getting a start. It's off the glove of Carpenter. Ricochets to Diaz, but the throw not in time. We'll wait for the scoring on the play as Kendrick is safely across.
Well, this ball's hit with a lot of topspin, so it's a difficult chance for Carpenter, who tries to give a little bit of ground to get a bigger hop, but the topspin makes it a tough play. Diaz alertly handles it, but Kendrick runs way too well to have any chance at getting him.
Kendrick signed late in the offseason with the Dodgers, and so with Utley already on the team, a little second, some third even. He's played some left, and that's where he is tonight. He's in left field tonight. Carl Crawford is not in the lineup. Kendrick just trying to get some at bats. This one will be scored as an error on Carpenter. Dave Roberts has been looking to get Kendrick in the lineup a lot more. Here's Yasiel Puig. Leake, who fields his position well, off the mound in a hurry to throw him out 2 down. Kendrick into second on the play. You know, back to Diaz for a moment. It's going to be interesting. Johnny Peralta, who's out with a thumb injury, is getting ready to go out on a rehab assignment and could be back 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. He's the incumbent at short, but can Peralta play somewhere else? Can Diaz play somewhere else? Is Wong in jeopardy of losing some playing time? Remember, Matt Carpenter can play second base, not just third base. This Cardinal infield could go a number of different directions.
Well, and I think they're also very conscious of the fact that Diaz is doing well for a reason. It's because he's getting comfortable, and even though he's had quite a bit of errors at the shortstop position, they don't necessarily want to move him when Peralta comes back and get into another position. I mean, it's key for what he's done for this team offensively, and there's a part of that. Do they mess with it, or do they put Peralta somewhere else? I mean, it's not a bad problem to have, but it's definitely going to be interesting.
These are internal discussions that the Cardinals are having on a daily basis, and obviously there's 2-3 more weeks to play out to where things can factor into that decision. But man, I get the feeling that if it kind of remains this way, I think they would like to keep things as steady as possible for Diaz, even though he struggled a little bit defensively at shortstop.
Committed 3 errors Friday, has committed 9 on the season. Cardinal shortstops as a group, 4 different Cardinal shortstops, have committed 14 errors this year. No other team has more than 6 errors from the shortstop position this year. Mike Matheny, though, says he feels there's way too much scrutiny on that. On Diaz. He says, hey, he was playing Double-A last year. He didn't play at all really the year before. Matheny thinks he's getting better. Thought there were some tough chances on Friday night. And what they love about him about as much as anything is after he made the 3 errors, he's there in the clubhouse, standing in front of the microphones, talking to the media, owning up to it. The first guy to go to the pitcher when he comes off the mound and say, hey, my bad, I'll get the next one. He's a very accountable young man.
And we talk about the Cardinals culture that they've really created over the last 12, 15, even 20 years, going back into the Tony La Russa era, as being one of the best cultures in Major League Baseball.
Right on cue, ground ball to Diaz, and the inning is over.
And he has fit right into that culture with that accountability.
End of 2, no score. 1-on-1, Jess Mendoza with Dodger third baseman Justin Turner talking a little hitting when we come back. Top of the third here on Sunday Night Baseball, Cardinals and Dodgers. Before the game, Jess Mendoza going one-on-one with Justin Turner.
Justin, your stance has evolved from the Mets to the Dodgers, but you always get into a great contact position. I know right now, pregame, okay, you hone in on one thing. One of the things you like is a little unconventional, where you like the tee set up a little bit more out front. Why?
Yeah, for me, a big thing in my swing is the contact point. Obviously, I want to get into a good position every time and be able to repeat that, but I want to establish a contact point out in front of my body. I think that's where my optimal bat speed is out in front, not deep. And then the other thing is when I see some people do tee work, and the deeper they get it, it kind of creates bad habits, at least for me. The deeper it gets, your eyes have to go to the ball, which turns your shoulders in, and that's absolutely a position that I'd never want to be in.
Yeah.
So for me, I throw the tee out in front. That way when I get ready and I get set up, the ball's in my vision. I can go through my stance, get into my position to hit. I never have to, move my eyes. The ball's always in my vision. And now I can make my move from there and get my contact point out in front where I want to be during the game.
And one of the things, too, for you, you grew up in Long Beach, went to school at Cal State Fullerton, won a championship, and now you're playing in LA. What's it been like being a Cal? You got the shades, you got everything, you got the whole look going.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It really has been career-changing to come back home. I spent my whole professional career on the East Coast for the most part until I got the opportunity to come back here. And just for my friends to be able to come out and family come out whenever they want and have the comfort of being here at home in LA. And I think the most important thing is I don't have to unpack my locker every year. I don't have to move. I don't have to pack up my house or anything. I just get to leave everything put. So that's the coolest thing.
But on a serious note, you have a chia pet. There's a Justin Turner chia pet day. Tell me, what was that? You bypassed the bobblehead straight to the chia pet.
Yeah, they came to me this offseason and said we want to do a chia pet, and I told them to go for it, and it was a good turnout. And I've gotten all kinds of pictures of chia pet fails, and I've gotten some that look really good. So I'm probably going to do a social media contest here in the next few days and see who has the best Justin Turner chia pet.
Best chia pet. Look out! Awesome. Thanks, JT.
Absolutely.
1-2, a swing and a miss, and Eric Fryer is gone. And through the miracle of television, we have a chia pet here in the box tonight.
I mean,
that's a good-looking chia pet.
It's got the full jersey. I mean, look at the locks in the back, a little front of it.
You've made it.
Yeah.
You got a chia pet.
Forget bobblehead. This is the next level.
You guys,
here.
The best is Scott Van Slyke, his teammate, who's on the disabled list right now. He grew it out like full-fledged, okay? Was dyeing it red to make it super authentic. He dropped it 2 days ago, and I mean, he was explaining this to me. He was like emotional about it.
Scott Van Slyke could have a chia pet too.
Yeah, he could.
Yep.
There's some serious beards being rocked, but you gotta admit the red, the fact that there's so many bobbleheads. But Justin Turner really understands too the game, his swing. I mean, we could have probably had 90-minute session on just hitting alone.
It was interesting how, because guys don't do that with the tee. You have to do a lot of things right to hit a ball well where he places the tee and really keep that hitting zone, the bat in the hitting zone for a long time.
That's the opposite of what.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I think setting up a tee, when I'm talking to a young player setting up the tee, it's always deep in the zone. You want to challenge yourself, staying inside, and the fact that he does the opposite of that, I love it. I love that he's different, thinks a little outside the box, and that's what works for him too. It's more mental, being able to kind of see it all out front, get his body into a good position.
Guys, he's had a couple of great years with the Dodgers. Hit .340 2 years ago in 109 games. Hit .294 last year. Mike Leake, the batter here for the Cardinals, one of the better hitting pitchers in baseball. Just 1 for 10 this year. But in his career, he is a .209 hitter. He has 6 home runs. .209 is the second highest batting average among major league pitchers, behind Zach Greinke. Minimum 150 at bats. Pops this one up in foul territory for Turner. 2 down. Here's what's coming up on the MLB calendar this week. Tomorrow night, the Boston Red Sox, who are scoring runs in bunches right now. A 10-9 win over Houston today. They will be in Kansas City. Wednesday night baseball sees the Nationals taking on the Mets. And 1 week from tonight, how much fun is this going to be? We will have the Cubs and the Giants on Sunday night baseball.
Looking like we might get Bad Bum, huh, for the Giants?
Here's Matt Carpenter. The Giants just finished sweeping a 4-game series from Arizona. So the Giants are a half game ahead of the Dodgers for top spot in the National League West. A 2-1 win for the Giants today. Matt Cain had a very good outing for San Francisco. Peavy had a good one his last time out, so maybe things are starting to settle down to the back end of the rotation. The Cubs, meanwhile, lost today. Pittsburgh salvaged the final game of that series. Garrett Cole got the win. A 2-1 victory for the Pirates. Jung Ho Gong doubled in 1 run and homered for the other Pirates run. John Lester had a no-hitter through 6 and still got stuck with a very tough luck loss.
How happy are the Pirates to get Young back? I mean, just seeing him in the lineup obviously today.
Well, and to get Garrett Cole
right
pitching again like an ace this afternoon. A win they really needed.
Carpenter didn't look thrilled with that call, and it's 2-2.
See, I'm always, if you're going to go wide as an umpire, I'm good with one side, but it's so difficult when it's both. And with Matt Carpenter in this at bat, you just saw the last one off the plate.
Now he drives the pitch deep right center field. Puig doesn't have a play on this one. Carpenter almost hit it out in the first. Now he does hit it out in the third. Just the second home run in the last 2 years allowed to a left-handed batter by Alex Wood.
Dan, we mentioned this off the top. He's hit 4 of his 7 home runs in the last week. This is his 5th home run. He says he likes facing lefties because it really keeps his swing true. You watch his front shoulder, even on this pitch, it's up and it's middle, but he's able to kind of get his shoulder into that position to reach this pitch. Might have cleared by just 2 feet, but it was enough. 5 feet further than his last one.
You know, it was a very similar pitch to the one he hit his first time. The fly ball to deep right kind of drifted back over the middle inner part of the plate, but up. And they wanted that pitch down and away again after getting the call on the previous pitch off the edge.
So Carpenter gives the Cardinals a 1-0 lead in the top of the third. Dangerous against lefties. The batter is Piscotty, who grounded out his first time up.
And the one thing I was surprised Wood did not do, which he's done so well early in this game, is getting into Matt Carpenter. He didn't really establish that inside, which we saw with Hazelbaker, we saw with Wong. And because of that, Carpenter was crowding a bit, able to get to that pitch.
Now fly ball to deep left center field. Kendrick going back, and it'll be Peterson making the catch, leaping up against the fence. Terrific play by Jock Peterson. But it's the Cardinals now with a 1-0 lead.
I'm sorry.
Underway in the bottom of the third, a strike taken by Alex Wood to begin the inning. The Cardinals with a 1-0 lead on the home run by Matt Carpenter in the top half of the inning. Wood is 3 for 11 with a couple of RBIs so far this year, and a rarity, a left-handed thrower and a right-handed batter as he chases down low.
That's a great look at the sinker from Mike Leake. The bottom just fell out at 91 miles an hour. I've watched his last couple of outings. There's another one. That ball is right down the heart of the plate, but the bottom falls out, swinging over the top.
Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Voya Financial, changing the way you think of retirement. And Hampton, we go together. Nice night here in Los Angeles. Glad you're with us for Sunday Night Baseball. 1-0, the Cardinals lead. Big crowd, big crowd here tonight. It's kids' batting glove night here at Dodger Stadium. Here's Chase Utley. Meanwhile, in Arlington, Texas today, it was not quite so civil and peaceful and relaxed as things have been so far tonight. The Rangers and the Blue Jays had themselves a brawl.
Like a real brawl.
Like a real brawl. Not your typical go out and yell at people brawl. Now remember, these two teams met in the division series a year ago. Remember the bat flip. Here's after Jose Bautista got hit in this game, a hard takeout slide at second on Rougned Odor. Bautista gets up and Odor, I mean, he nails him with a right cross, and then it is on. Blue Jays came out to defend Bautista. A number of ejections. John Gibbons, who had been ejected earlier in the game for arguing balls and strikes, eventually came back onto the field. Adrian Beltre might have been the best friend that Jose Bautista had, certainly on the Texas side. He might have saved him from further damage because Beltre just wrapped up Bautista and took him out of the pile. No love lost between these teams at all. Backdrop to the story. That's the last game these two teams will play all year. They've met 7 times already. That's it. It was 7-6 Texas in the 8th inning. Bautista led it off. Matt Bush, the same Matt Bush, former first overall pick, all kinds of off the field issues, in jail for a while, now coming back as a pitcher, just made his major league debut this week. On the first pitch of the 8th inning in a 1-run game, hit Bautista right in the ribs. Here's Seager driving the ball deep left field, opposite field, power for a home run.
Well, Corey Seager continues what has been a red-hot month of May. An OPS over 1,000. And look at the plate coverage here. That's a sinker working down and away. You see that just short, easy swing and the real good straightaway power the other way. Special-looking player.
Yep, his second home run in as many nights, his 5th home run of the season, ties the game at 1. Just turned 22 at the end of April. Back to the Texas-Toronto game for a moment. So only Matt Bush knows whether it was intentional or not, or maybe he's told a few people. But right now, sitting here in Los Angeles, we can only speculate on whether it was intentional or not. No love lost, to say the least, between the Rangers and Bautista, or the Rangers and the Blue Jays. You may have seen the tweet. They showed it during baseball tonight. Marcus Stroman graduated from Duke University today, so he was not with the team, and sent a tweet out about Rougned Odor, saying he never respected him, and he certainly doesn't respect him now. These two teams, it's a full-on hate between these two teams.
Well, you could tell. I mean, it was obvious, and especially them waiting, and I think it was on purpose, in my opinion. And granted, we're here in LA, you're watching it, but where the pitch was located, the background on these two teams, and the fact that it was the last time that the Rangers would be facing Bautista, and you can tell by the reactions of Stroman, both benches clearing, exactly what you said.
Turner lifts a fly ball to right field, and that'll end the inning. The Dodgers, though, have tied it up. Corey Seager, with his 2nd home run in as many nights, takes this one to the opposite field, and it's 1-1. Presented by Taco Bell. A 1-1 tie going to the top of the fourth. Moments ago, our Buster Olney spoke with Cardinal manager Mike Matheny.
Mike, another homer for Matt Carpenter. When he gets on a roll like this, what do you think the common denominator is?
He's just got a great sense of the zone, and you're seeing his walk start to pick up where he's tracking the ball well, and he's missing a few pitches almost every at-bat. It felt like there for a little while, and it was frustrating for him. Now he's getting good ball, hitting the middle of the plate and doing really, I think, making the most out of it. He's got good power and obviously developed that last year and continuing to improve every part of his game.
Ledmus Diaz, another hit. What are you seeing in him beginning of his career?
It's an impressive approach. You know, he's able to make a good adjustment right in the middle of the game. They're getting an off-speed pitch and just keeping enough back to stay through it. But, you know, he's got good hands. He's able to cover most of the plate and trying to figure out what the league's doing to him. He's making the adjustments right on time, and hopefully he continues to do so.
Mike, thanks.
And Diaz with a base hit on a 2-strike pitch back in the second. A Matt Carpenter home run for the Cardinals and a Corey Seager home run for the Dodgers. And it's tied at 1 top 4 here at Dodger Stadium. No 2 to Matt Holliday. The Dodgers winning 8-4 on Friday night. Yasiel Puig had a home run for the Dodgers in that game. Ross Stripling picked up his first major league win. And then last night, the Dodgers beating the Cardinals 5-3. You saw some of the Scott Kazmir highlights. He went 8 2/3 last night before Kenley Jansen had to get the last out for his 13th save. So the Cardinals, I guess the only good news so far is they avoided Clayton Kershaw, which is something that you want to do these days, because Clayton Kershaw is missing bats at an unbelievable pace. He is as good as he's ever been right now as Holliday hits a big bouncer to short. This is not a mistake, what you're about to see. 77 strikeouts and 4 walks on the season.
All that conversation about who's the best pitcher in the land. A lot of talk about Arrieta. Clayton Kershaw doing his part to stake his claim off to an unbelievable 77 and 4. It doesn't make sense.
No. It would, if it stays anywhere close to that, he would shatter the all-time major league record for strikeout to walk ratio in a season, which was set a couple of years ago by Phil Hughes with Minnesota. I think Hughes was about 11-1. Kershaw's over 19-1.
He's like the big kid in Little League.
Yeah. He's bullying people.
He is.
And with his bat too. Won a game himself.
Yep.
Hitting the only run.
Boone, you're underselling it. Best pitcher in the land. It's the best pitcher in the planet.
Oh, my bad.
The guy from Mars. He trumped him.
In all the land.
4 ERA titles, 3 Cy Young awards. Not bad. Some questions after Kershaw in the rotation, of course, although Kazmir was good last night. Kenta Maeda, newcomer this year, got off to an incredible start for the Dodgers. They've got some guys who are getting ready to come back at some point. Brandon McCarthy, Hyunjin Ryu is about ready to go out on a rehab assignment, actually through today, I believe, through a couple of innings today. Brett Anderson. So they've got some guys with some track records who they are hoping to get back in the next several weeks. This is a team that's been decimated by injuries. They've got 10 players on the disabled list right now, including these 3 guys.
Yeah, and remember Ross Stripling, who's in the rotation now for the Dodgers, is probably on a strict innings limit. So at some point, you know, he's going to be shut down. That's where one of those guys can come in and fill the void. But then Julio Urias down in AAA, 19 years old. One of the top prospects in all of baseball, is dominating the Pacific Coast League. And that's not an easy thing to do as a pitcher. A lot of great hitters parks in that league, and I think he's on a 22 consecutive innings without allowing a run, but really just dominating down there. And there's a lot of, I think, talk now in the Dodgers organization, especially with some of the struggles they've had out of the bullpen and from the left side. There's a look at him, 19 years old, the 5th-ranked prospect, a microscopic ERA at AAA. But, you know, I think the internal discussions as to when he does come up, what role? Do you want to get some starts? Because he's going to be on a strict innings limit this year too, maybe 100 innings. He threw about 80 a season ago. So do you plug him right into the bullpen and become that weapon, or do you use him for a handful of starts as a starter?
I like him in the bullpen because right now, with seeing Kazmir, seeing the starting rotation start to figure things out, to me, the glaring Achilles heel for this team is the bullpen. Outside of Kenley Jansen, who hands the ball from Alex Wood to Jansen? Who's in between? It's been inconsistent, and I think if you bring up a guy that's just owning AAA and you're easing him into it, he has innings limit. Urias is the guy. He's the one that could, to me, fill that role perfectly.
And that's an area for the Dodgers the last few years. You know, they've had a hard time, especially in the postseason, bridging that gap to Kenley Jansen. And if Urias can come up and be a real weapon and another weapon for you to help do that, and you could, you know, in theory, keep him active the entire year with that innings limit as a bullpen piece.
Won't turn 20 until August. And a 1.25 ERA at AAA right now. Ground ball down to third. Charging Turner gets rid of it in a hurry, and the inning is over. 3 up, 3 down go the Cardinals. When we come back, our man Buster Olney in conversation with Dodger manager Dave Roberts. The fourth here at Dodger Stadium. Between innings, our Buster Olney is mentioned with Dodger manager Dave Roberts.
Dave, we've seen Alex Wood make some mechanical adjustments. How much of a difference do you think that has made for him?
I think it's made a huge difference. You know, and Honey and he were talking about trying to get down that slope and stay lower, and that front leg was getting too high up early. And once he made that adjustment, the ball's been down, and he's shown his last 4 outings have been unbelievable.
What have you seen in the evolution of Corey Seager as a hitter in this first month of the season?
Yeah, you know what, after the first month, you know, he's starting to become a little bit more patient, swinging at strikes, taking balls, and, you know, he's got power to all fields, got a great swing and great head, and, you know, that was a big hit right there.
Dave, thanks.
Bottom four, Adrian Gonzalez. And Mike Leake misses low for ball 2. Gonzalez struck out on a breaking ball his first time up. One of 2 strikeouts on the night for Leake, who's not a big strikeout guy. Pitches to contact, gets a lot of ground balls when he's on. This one is laced into the right field corner, but foul. Time now to take a look at our value player, brought to you by True Value. And Adrian Gonzalez, as we mentioned, a very consistent player over the years. 20 or more home runs 9 times, 100 or more RBIs 7 times. And a 4-time Gold Glover as well.
And one of those players, obviously so consistent, talented, very studious, and a great feel. understands who he's up against, shares with his teammates, has a very good knowledge, especially pitch to pitch. Sometimes we talk game to game. You think guys watch video and it's coming into the game, they have an overall idea. He'll watch and literally learn. And as he's getting out right now in the batter's box, he's thinking and he's adjusting to what he saw within an at bat. That's one of the most difficult things to do as a hitter.
Outside, ball 4. Earlier today, Adriana Gonzalez spent some time with Little League ball players from Manhattan Beach, giving them a little bit of a tutorial around first base.
How did Boone get in there? Getting some tips. Little
Leaguers and Aaron.
I'm not going to give away which kid, but one of the kids told me he's a Giants fan. He was laying low in that session.
Pretty good guy to get some first base advice from. Adrian Gonzalez knows his way around the bag.
Part of MLB's play ball initiative this weekend. All of the players wearing patches on their jerseys. A real opportunity this week for Little League players in all ballparks around to come out. And actually, the Dodgers yesterday, some of the kids didn't come here. Some Dodgers went out and found some kids yesterday. Show you that in a moment. Yasmani Grandal is the batter.
Found him at the beach. Southern California. How cool is that?
Baseball on the beach in California. Not a bad day. Yesterday afternoon on Venice Beach, some Little Leaguers got a bit of a surprise when Yasiel Puig and Justin Turner showed up.
Played baseball on the beach with the kids. Nice day.
Turner owns Puig.
Hashtag Puig no pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think they had any fun at all. Great combination though. Two loves, Southern California baseball and beach.
Popped up in foul territory. Holiday will make the catch just before Fryer crashes into him. Again, Matt Holliday, not a whole lot of time at first base. This is his 5th start of the season there. He was taking ground balls and doing some PFP before the game, but this is a tricky play, especially when you're not in your own ballpark.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Matt Holliday. Is he calling it?
Yeah, he's not.
I mean, I think he's just thinking, well, this is my ball all the way. Didn't know I had to worry about the catcher coming in, because the catcher's going to go as hard as he can till he hears something, and it's certainly the first baseman's ball if he can get to it. Good concentration by Holliday to stay with it after taking a left to the chops.
Mike Matheny there, the skipper, helping out his catcher, Eric Fryer. So Holliday, almost exclusively a left fielder, spent a lot of time in the spring working at first base and playing games at first base. But then Tommy Pham, an outfielder, a right-handed batter, went on the DL. The idea was against lefties they could move Holliday into first base, put Pham out in the outfield. But when Pham went on the DL, that kind of reduced the chances for them to do this. But Holliday has continued to work at first base. This is his first start there in a few weeks. Kendrick with a base hit. Past Diaz into left field. Gonzalez up to second on the play.
This is a bat to look out for right now. Howie Kendrick, I feel like, and this team has been hitting well this last week, but he has been at the top of that and wasn't in the lineup yesterday. Just swinging it so well. He's had a lot of opposite field hits the past week, but does a good job on this one. Look at his hands. Just draw a line close to his body. That's how close he stays inside this ball. And able to turn it hard enough just past the diving Diaz.
So the Dodgers with 2 men on and just 1 out here in the bottom of the 4th, trying to break the tie, and the batter will be Yasiel Puig, who by all accounts is playing great defense this year, and a lot of the other issues, some maturity issues, timeliness, those things have basically gone away. Now they're just looking for the offense they're hoping to get out of him.
Oh, talk about Kendrick's back getting hot. Can you imagine this offense if Yasiel Puig gets going? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts within the lineup. We talked about it earlier, but for Yasiel Puig and this Dodgers team, he's doing a great job defensively, but when he can get going, when that time, I mean, it's going to make a huge impact on the amount of runs and the way this team explodes offensively.
What do you see in the batter's box, Aaron?
he's so still. There's no movement once he sets his hands, and I think sometimes it messes with his timing. So he'll be behind the fastball and late on the breaking, or out in front of the breaking ball a lot, because he doesn't have a real good rhythm at home plate. He does a lot of this, and I think it's an effort to be quiet and keep his head still, which he does a really nice job of. But in watching his at-bats the last few weeks, there's a lot of times where he's out in front of the breaking ball and beaten with good fastballs, especially in, and prone to chasing pitches out of the zone. And I think sometimes it's a result of him being so still that he does not get started on time.
Drives the ball to straightaway center and deep. Grichuk makes the catch, banging into the fence. Both runners had started toward the next bag, so they've got to go back. A long, loud out off the bat of Yasiel Puig.
And here's a pretty good example, first, of how strong Yasiel Puig is. This ball, I think, beats him a little bit inside and gets him off the handle a little bit. He's still able to drive it about 385 feet out there to straightaway center, and Grichuk does a good job of rerouting and finding the wall and making a nice play. And we've seen Grichuk make a couple of nice plays already in this series. Robbed a home run earlier in the series, and Matheny appreciative of that effort in a tie ball game here in the fourth.
Well, his awareness of where he's at on the field. And this isn't his home ballpark, and he's done a really good job, you mentioned this series, of knowing where that wall is. That's why he's able to make that catch.
Here's Jock Peterson. Puig frustrated as he goes back to the dugout, coming that close to an extra base hit. Peterson grounded out his first time up. Strikeouts are up, walks are down from last year, but he is hitting for a better average than he did last year. Peterson's at an even 250 right now. Hit 210 last year. Scorches one down to first. Holliday knocks it down and feeds Leake covering to end the inning. A very good play by Matt Holliday, and we're through 4. Coverage provided by Goodyear, leading the way with tires that deliver superior performance in clutch situations. Goodyear, more driven. Top 5 at Dodger Stadium. Dan Shulman, Jessica Mendoza, Aaron Boone, Buster Olney. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. A 1-1 tie between the Cardinals and the Dodgers. And Jeremy Hazelbaker takes a strike from Alex Wood. A Matt Carpenter home run for St. Louis in the top of the third. A Corey Seager home run for the Dodgers in the bottom of the third. And a pop-up on the infield for Seager for out number 1. Time now for the conference finals in the NBA, and ESPN will bring you the Eastern Conference Finals as the Cleveland Cavaliers will take on the Toronto Raptors, who beat the Miami Heat in Game 7 earlier today. It's the draft lottery at 8 Eastern on Tuesday night, and then Game 1 between the Raptors and the Cavs beginning at 8:30 Tuesday night. The coverage begins with NBA Countdown at 7 Eastern. May I for just a moment?
Yes.
First time they've made the Eastern Conference Finals. They had won only one playoff series in, 20 years before this year. They needed 7 games to beat the Pacers, 7 games to beat the Heat. But there's a whole city up there going, phew.
Who's they?
The Raptors.
There you go.
Break out the Raptor. We know you're wearing it underneath. You gotta.
I might have a little old school Raptor purple on. There's a base hit through the right side for Colton Wong. That'll bring up Eric Fryer, who is the backup catcher for the Cardinals. Brian Pena's on the DL. So Fryer, 30 years of age, has played for the Pirates and the Twins before coming to St. Louis. Yadier Molina getting a rare night off. Just the 4th time this year in 38 games that Molina is not in the starting lineup. He usually, you have to drag him out of the starting lineup kicking and screaming. But Mike Matheny convincing him to take a day. They've got an off day tomorrow. They don't play again until Tuesday when they start a homestand. So Molina will get a break. Although in 2 of the 3 games he hasn't started, he's come in later on in the game this year.
Yeah, and this is the 3rd game out of the last 4 outings for Mike Leake that Fryer has been behind home plate to catch him. They've kind of developed a nice rapport, but one of the good stories so far has been Yadier Molina. I think he beat everyone's expectation by coming back and being ready by opening day with that thumb issue, and he's come out, swung the bat well, and looked very much like Yadier Molina.
I think he had the longest active streak, or one of them, without a strikeout. I mean, his ability just to come in to the lineup, especially with this team who's had quite a bit of case up and down the lineup. You mentioned it up the top. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. He's been the constant, as he always is.
Wong's got pretty good speed. A couple of stolen bases on the season, and he draws a throw from Wood. Wood is tough to run on.
Yep.
There has not been a stolen base against Alex Wood, and there have only been 2 attempts in his last 24 starts.
And a reason for that is he does such a good job of varying his looks, varying his times. He'll at times slide step to home plate. Other times he'll pick up the leg, but he's got a decent move over there to first there. I think that was the first step off throw over that we've seen on the night, but he just gives the base runner a lot of different looks and kind of controls it with his variations.
Ground ball hit towards third, charged by Turner on to first in time. Good stretch by Gonzalez into foul territory for out number 2, and Wong up to second.
Guys, it doesn't surprise me that Wood is this specific in a lot of things he does. As you see Justin Turner make the play here, he keeps a notebook, and he's always someone who's very on top of all the different things he's doing. Jess talked about some of the mechanical adjustments he made during the course of the offseason. He's got a lot of respect from other Dodgers in terms of how hard he works at his craft.
And he's a guy, if guys like Ryu and Anderson and McCarthy all come back, somebody or some somebodies have to make room in the rotation. So Alex Wood wants to make sure he's not one of those guys. Stripling, the rookie, would figure to be the most likely candidate to come out of the rotation if and when somebody's ready to go back in.
And to Buster's point, too, it's not just the fact that Wood watches video, but he has so much body awareness. I mean, you think about all the movements that he does as a pitcher, and the fact that he was aware of his stride foot and the length that it was in the air coming down on the ground. And it sounds simple. Yeah, an athlete should have that body awareness. Most don't. Most have to use video to find that, and he's aware of those things.
He was aware, too, that his arm angle had dropped about 6 to 8 inches, and that's another change that he affected coming into this year because he lost about 2 miles per hour in his fastball last season. He said, look, at my age, that doesn't happen, and so he went about the business of trying to find out why.
25 years old, you don't want to see a velocity drop. You know you're not hitting quite the old timer yet.
2 balls and a strike on Leake, who, as we mentioned, is a good hitter. Better than 200 in his career, 6 home runs. Grandal and Wood with a long conversation out of the front of the mound. Dodgers staying home. They will start the freeway series. They will take on the Angels here for the next 2 nights, and then down in Anaheim on a Wednesday and Thursday. Cardinals will head home and start a 9-game homestand on Tuesday. They'll play the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and then the Cubs. Whenever the Cubs and Cardinals get together, it's special. Strike 3 called. Number 5 for Wood. Mike Matheny not happy with the strike zone. There's been some barking on both sides so far here tonight. Tom Hallion rings him up. At the bottom of the 5th here on Sunday Night Baseball, and time now for this week's installment of the critically acclaimed Boondoggle. Aaron doing an impersonation of somebody's batting stance, and he's pulled out one of his old favorites tonight. Willie McGee doing it from the left side. Even getting into the box, you got it nailed. You know, for young fans who may not have known who Willie McGee was, he was a terrific player. Don't let his slender build fool you.
The choke up, I mean, the details. Like, that's what I'm always impressed with. Little details.
That's one of your favorites, isn't it?
Willie McGee's fun to do, no doubt. And he was a great player.
Great player.
Yeah.
On a great Cardinals team in the 1980s, they had speed all over the place. They played
Vince Coleman, Ozzie Smith.
Yep. Tommy Herr was on that team.
Tommy Herr, and then they had the thumper Jack Clark in the middle. Yeah.
What I love, Dan, though, is watching him before he even gets to when he's impersonating, and he kind of almost like
gets a character.
He walking up. I mean, the cameras weren't even on him yet. And he's walking up, and it's like all of a sudden Aaron Boone is gone. And here comes Willie McGee. Well, it's impressive.
He's an artist. He's an actor.
Yeah, I guess I need to respect it a little more. I sound surprised.
Lined up the middle, a base hit for Alex Wood. Here are the candidates for next week's Boondoggle. We will have the Cubs and the Giants on Sunday Night Baseball. And Boone, he's branching out a little bit. He might do a pitcher. He might imitate Rick Sutcliffe's motion. It'll either be that or Will Clark. Vote for your choice on Twitter at BBTN.
Hashtag vote Sut.
Have you?
Will the Thrill would be pretty good now.
They're both pretty good.
I've never done Will.
You've done Sut.
I've done Sut in some different kind of settings.
Never on national television?
Never on national television. I might have flirted with it on national TV.
There's Chase Utley swinging a miss with the breaking ball, and it's 0-1. If you could be known for just one, who is it? Who's your all-time favorite? It's like asking a singer, what's your favorite song?
Everyone seems to like the Joe Torre lately.
That's pretty good.
But I don't know. I like doing Pete Rose, Ichiro.
That's good. Yeah.
I think we ought to give you extra credit points at some point if you do Alex Wood as a pitcher.
You'd fall over.
Replicate that motion.
I could do Buster.
Yeah, careful, Buster.
Going from the first base side to the third base side after the first interview?
I've seen that one.
Yeah. It's pretty realistic. Ground ball to the right side. Holiday will force the lead runner Wood at second for out number 1. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Napoleon Grills, own the best, and Ortho. Got pests and weeds? Ortho has you covered. It is a great night for baseball here in Southern California. Gorgeous setting here at Dodger Stadium. A 1-1 tie in the bottom of the 5th inning. Runner at first went out for Corey Seager, who homered his last time up. His second in as many nights and his 5th of the season as he hits a screamer foul.
There's a good look at the plate coverage as we look at his home run back in the 3rd. They wanted to go sinker down and away. Maybe catches a little too much of the plate, but a really good swing on the ball working down and away. And then the first pitch in this at bat, they go with the cut fastball in on the hands. He's almost able to keep it fair down there. But the plate coverage has been something that has really impressed me.
Runner is going. Throw down by Fryer is right on the money to get Utley.
This is a really good throw from Eric Fryer. Not a good pitch to handle. You see him kind of turn the glove over and still get himself into really good throwing position early and throws a bullet down to second base, and Chase Utley's out easily at second. A big second out for Leake. But we'll see. That first pitch cut fastball to Seager, he's done that with a few of the left-handed hitters for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then later in the bat, if he gets to 2 strikes, he likes to go to that 2-seam fastball that he starts in off the plate and then tries to run it back to the inside corner, thinking, I know their discipline is to maybe try and stay off the cutter in off the plate. If I can start it and work it back the other way, maybe I can freeze him. We'll see if he tries it here.
Down and in with a breaking ball. And on the appeal, Seager is judged to have gone around. And that will end the inning. We are tied at 1 at the end of 5 after Seager strikes out. Yes, he did go around, inning over. between the Cardinals and the Dodgers as we go to the 6th inning. The St. Louis run coming on a solo home run in the 3rd by the man in the batter's box right now, Matt Carpenter. In a lefty-lefty matchup, hit it off Alex Wood. And we can show you where all the pitches have been that Carpenter has hit a home run off a lefty the last 2 years, so most of them on the inner half of the plate.
And Dan, look at where he's at and where he'll get closed. He's open right now, but see that front foot get closed, and that's where Wood needs to go. And yes, he hits his home runs on the inner part of the plate, but that's a huge testament to his hands and his bat speed, because he's not afraid to crowd, especially a lefty, because most lefties do like to go away. And that's the setup that Alex Wood's trying to get to. But Carpenter, the smart hitter he is, understanding the strike zone, knowing where he's at in the box, was telling me yesterday, I love facing lefties. I love getting a little bit on the plate and challenging them. And you look at the first 2 at bats against Alex Wood. Just misses a home run, 91 miles per hour, about 2 feet from going out. And what does he do? He follows it up, second at bat. This pitch is a little bit higher in the zone, but he gets the barrel there. Again, a little bit on the plate. He's able to get his hands to pitches. That's his cookie zone. You saw the pitches in the past. He hits home runs off of left-handed pitchers, middle to in. But again, it's his hands, it's his bat speed, and where he locates himself in that batter's box to set himself up to hit those pitches.
Guys, I think it's a trend in baseball. I hear more and more about left-handed hitters getting in the box closer to the plate. Anthony Rizzo does it, which is why he gets hit by pitches so often. David Ortiz is doing it. They really are confident pitchers cannot come inside.
And the thing is, when like Matt Carpenter, when your damage is done on the inner half, it makes the margin for error for the pitcher so small, because you want to attack him in on the corner. If you can get your fastball to that inside corner, you're going to have success. But if you miss it all, that's where his power comes, and that's where he does his damage. But by getting on top of the plate, he knows he can handle the pitch out over the plate because he's in a good position to hit it.
Because that's the toughest pitch. I mean, lefty on lefty. I was a left-handed hitter, and I crowded because I was weak on a pitch moving away. And I challenge pitchers, try to come inside in that small area where you're not going to hit me, and then you're not going to pipe it to where I want to crush it. And Carpenter does an excellent job of that.
On the appeal, he didn't go. And we've got some activity now in the Dodger bullpen. The right-hander is Lewis Coleman, who's been pitching very well of late for the Dodgers. The left-hander is veteran J.P. Howell. 83 pitches thrown by Wood so far. A 1-1 tie here in the 6th inning. And heading right into the heart of the Cardinal lineup, which is the 2nd highest scoring lineup, the 2nd best offensive team in the National League so far this year, behind only the Cubs. Although the Cardinals have had a hot and cold aspect to their offense this year, overall they're better than 5.5 runs per game. And they lead the National League in home runs. The Carpenter home run tonight, they're 54th on the season. The strike, 2-2.
You know, Boone, you talked about Yasiel Puig and his hands and how quiet they are. You know, I watched Stephen Piscotty, and he'll have a lot of movement early, but his hands will get quiet. The difference between him and Puig is that his hands continue to still move back into a strong hitting position. But if you watch him as he gets into the box, he'll have a lot of movement. He'll be moving around, and then they get really quiet. But they have a subtle movement back, and I think that's the difference between him and Puig. He's able to then get on time with a lot of pitches because of that subtle movement. He doesn't stop.
Piscotty thinks it's ball 4. It's ball 3.
No, he thinks it hit his foot.
He thinks it hit him? Yeah, you're right.
Well, they tried to go to this back foot breaking ball the pitch before, but left it on the plate. Looks like he does check his swing.
Did it graze his right foot? It did. It did. That ball hit him in the foot. And
oh, yeah. Scotty just heads right down first base because he knows.
So they will review it as the first base ump, Tony Randazzo, comes in along with the crew chief, Tom Hallion.
Well, on a 2-2 pitch there, you get hit with the breaking ball in the foot. He went right away. You're not just going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you might try and sell it on like a 3-2 pitch where maybe you think you swung or something, and you're just trying to roll into it. But
that's not Stephen Piscotty. I mean, he's not the guy that's trying to pretend like I get hit here.
Pretty clear that it did hit him, and the review doesn't take long. And Dave Roberts is not headed out to talk with the umpire. He's headed out to the mound.
Well, and that was a huge goal for Alex Wood coming into this game. As he said, when I get 2 strikes, I want to be able to put away hitters, and that's something that if I were to pick something that, yes, I'm doing better, I'm getting to where I need to be mechanically, but when I get to 2 strikes, I don't want to lose someone, and that's a perfect example of getting ahead to Stephen Piscotty and then losing him by hitting his back foot on a breaking ball.
And Roberts will leave him. Whether it's in your backyard or on an organized team, MLB wants you to play ball. Check out the Scott's MLB Pitch, Hit, and Run Youth Skills Competition. It's free for boys and girls ages 7 to 14, and finalists have the chance to compete during All-Star Weekend San Diego. Find a local competition in your area at pitchhitrun.com.
Well, this is an area where Alex Wood has been so strong throughout his career. Again, inducing that ground ball when he needs it. And tonight against Holiday, he's attacked him a lot of different ways, in and out. So hasn't fallen into that pattern. His last at bat, he attacked him in with the fastball. He's mixed in some breaking balls. There he starts him down the way. So there's not a real pattern that Matt Holliday can really look for. More just looking for a mistake that he can drive to the outfield.
Big opportunity here for St. Louis in the 6th inning. Double play ball. And they will turn it.
Well, he went back to the breaking ball, trying to work it in on the hands and maybe down. The ball actually catches more of the plate than probably Wood would have liked. But Holliday, who is prone to, because he hits the ball hard from the right side, is a double play candidate, and that is tailor-made. Seager to Utley to Gonzalez, a huge double play, and you can see Alex Wood fired up that his manager came out and had the wherewithal to stick with him.
So 2 down, a runner at third, and a strike taken by Randal Grichuk, who has struck out in both of his at-bats tonight. So the decision so far has paid off for Dave Roberts to leave Wood. Can he get that 3rd out of the inning? He's a strike away.
And now you just got to expand the zone. You've shown Grichuk a lot of breaking balls. You've shown him there the fastball way off the plate. You know Grichuk's pressing a little bit and a bit of a free swinger. Nothing on the plate now.
Ground ball to short again. Seager, inning over. What a job by Alex Wood. And a round of applause from his skipper. This game's still tied at 1. Back here at Dodger Stadium, 3-4-5 coming up for the Dodgers here in the bottom of the 6th. The Dodgers and Cardinals are tied at 1. Justin Turner to be followed by Adrian Gonzalez and then Yasmani Grandal. Facing Mike Leake. Turner with a base hit and a fly ball tonight. Leake, as we mentioned, coming off a good one against the Angels on Tuesday. His first win as a member of the Cardinals. Just 1 run allowed over a season-high 8 innings. And this is what he does best. Keeps the ball down, gets ground balls.
Well, let's take a look at how Leake has attacked these Dodger hitters tonight. He's had outstanding command. First the cutter, he gets a strikeout on. The weak contact off the bat of Puig. Then the sinker, the good downward action, the good location at the bottom of the zone and usually on the outskirts. And then the changeup's been a real good pitch, especially to the lefties. There to Utley, and then there, the bottom falling out of that, down and out of the zone. He's gotten a lot of weak contact, and it's because of the outstanding command he's had with those 3 pitches tonight.
I like what you said earlier too about him utilizing the cutter and then the sinker to these lefties. And they get a good idea of, okay, I see this pitch on the inner half and it's going to break into me, and then he'll throw it in that same location to run back over the plate.
You guys see how fast he works. He's one of the fastest workers in Major League Baseball, about 20 seconds between pitches. When I asked him about it yesterday, about was there a coach who told you this, he goes, no, it was because when I was an amateur, I didn't like pitching. I just wanted to get it over with. I'd rather play other positions.
That's the best. You can picture 10-year-old Mike Leake.
Sure, his fielders love it, though, especially because the ball's in play so much.
Absolutely. And, you know, there was a lot of talk about his early struggles in the season. And just watching his outings, it was very Mike Leake-esque. He had his command. It was just a couple of pitches within the course of a game that really bit him. A 3-run home run here on a mistake where he was really in a groove. And then in Anaheim, he really found his groove over an extended period. And I think the Cardinal fans are really going to start to see the Mike Leake that's been such an effective pitcher really for most of his career in a hitter's ballpark in Cincinnati.
Pitching coach Derek Lilliquist looking on. The Cardinals rotation last year had an ERA collectively under 3. It's about a run higher. It's just over 4 so far this year. And granted, it's very early. But Adam Wainwright, after 8 starts, he's got a 6.80 ERA right now. Mike Matheny's saying it's just feel. Sometimes he has his curveball, sometimes he doesn't. And Matheny seems very confident that Wainwright, who's obviously got an incredible track record, is going to figure this out.
But that's the one guy in this rotation right now, though, I think you have a little bit of concern with, just because of all the innings he's logged, all the serious injury that he's coming back from, really missing the entire year last year with the exception of returning as a reliever at the very end of the season. For him, he just hasn't found that ace status again yet. He's the one guy in the rotation that I'd be a little concerned with. I think the other 4 guys are starting to really find themselves and settle into what they are.
Outside, a full count on Gonzalez. Yeah, Jaime Garcia's off to a terrific start. He's got a 2.58 ERA through 7 starts. Carlos Martinez didn't have his best effort last night. And it is just low for ball 4. Second walk drawn tonight by Gonzalez. Whether it's in your backyard or on an organized team, MLB wants you to play ball. Check out MLB's first ever Junior Home Run Derby for kids 14 and under. Winners of local contests will compete in the national finals during All-Star Week. Please visit jrhrd.com for more information. To round out the Cardinal rotation, Carlos Martinez, not his best night last night here for St. Louis, but obviously an incredibly talented young pitcher, good numbers overall. And Michael Wacha also having a good season. Almost forgotten is Lance Lynn, who's out all year with injury, a guy who's been very steady for them over the years. But the Cardinals seem to have a way, about as well as any team in baseball, of plugging holes. They don't worry about who they don't have. It's next man up. Somebody get in there and do the job.
Well, think of that rotation last year. That was really historically great, how consistent and dominant they were all season.
This could be 2. And it is to end the inning. Grandal grounds into a double play. 1-1 at the end of 6. You're watching Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Play ball weekend. The Manhattan Beach Little League kids, they're still here having a great time. Manhattan Beach Little League was formed in 1958. Started with a handful of teams. It's grown to over 1,000 boys and girls from the ages of 4 to 16 playing baseball and softball. And Manhattan Beach Little League has been to 4 Little League World Series. New pitcher for the Dodgers coming out of the bullpen is right-hander Lewis Coleman after 6 very strong innings from Alex Wood tonight. Coleman comes on here to work the 7th. He has now made 10 consecutive scoreless appearances, covering a total of 9 innings over that span.
And he could be on for just one hitter. He's dominated right-handed hitters on the year. 2 lefties due up after Diaz. Kind of drops down low 3/4. A lot of sliders and a fastball that has a lot of run to it.
And a sidewinder as Diaz takes outside of ball 1. Diaz a base hit and a ground out. Started off the year 26 for 52. The first rookie ever to be hitting 500 or better after 50 or more at bats. Right off the hip of Coleman. Bounces to Turner and they'll get the out. Just your routine 1-5-3 put out. And Dave Roberts is going to head out along with the trainer to make sure that Coleman's okay.
Well, I think he might be coming out of the game anyway, but here's a great look at Diaz and just how good a swing. This is a tough draw for a righty. He gets a slider and just rockets it back up the middle, and the Dodgers catch a big break as you see this ball. Really no reaction time for Coleman. Just, oh.
Hopefully a bit of a glancing blow. As Aaron said, might have been coming out of the game anyway with the lefties coming up. J.P. Howell's on his way in. Dodger Stadium. We're tied at 1 in the top of the 7th inning as we take a look now at tonight's pitching summary brought to you by John Deere. Alex Wood is out of the game, pitched very well. Got a big double play ball in the 6th inning to help get himself out of a jam. And Mike Leake is having a very strong night as well. The new pitcher is 32-year-old left-hander J.P. Howell in his 4th year as a member of the Dodgers. ERAs the first 3 years, 203, 239, 143 last year. Up over 8 this year, but that has been coming down. He's been pitching better of late, and of course relievers ERAs can really get skewed early in the season. On to face some lefties here, beginning with Jeremy Hazelbaker. Pretty good stuff for the 28-year-old rookie. And hit a home run off a lefty last night, Scott Kazmir.
Man, in the days when we see so many platoons, guys, matchups, certain hitters the Dodgers will face, depending if a lefty or righty. I love that you see a lot of these lefties have success against left-handed pitchers because they've had the opportunity to do so. And that's my biggest fear when you see the matchups. You see a lefty get benched because a lefty's starting a game, and it's not always true that a lefty can't hit lefties. And Hazelbaker's an example of that, Matt Carpenter, and just watching Hazelbaker's at bats tonight, he's able to adjust very well to, you know, location, depending if it's inner half or outer half, and be able to really cover the plate.
Off the glove of Howell. Here comes Turner again, but he won't have a play.
Well, there's a little peek at the athleticism of Hazelbaker as well. Mike Matheny talked about him being the best base runner, perhaps the best base stealer, and you see from the left side, as soon as that ball kicks away, maybe there's a chance for Turner to make this play. He does a good job of getting to it, but Hazelbaker getting down the line too well, and Turner wisely hangs on to it as he's able to leg that out.
Infield hit for Hazelbaker. The go-ahead run at first base with 1 down here in the top of the 7th, and here's Colton Wong, a strikeout and a base hit. Breaking ball catches the outside corner for a called strike as right-hander Joe Blanton now starts throwing in the Dodger pen. They're playing Wong to pull. Turner well off the line at third. Big swing and a miss. It's 0-2.
Well, how with that mid-80s fastball is all really over the top, and there the breaking ball that he starts off in the hitting zone but just works it down and away. Colton Wong way out in front and chasing that pitch.
Gonzalez playing off the bag in front of the base runner as the pitch is scooped up, blocked by Grandal for ball 1.
Now it's interesting with Joe Blanton getting warm in the Dodger bullpen. If Howell does retire Wong, if he stays in the game to face Fryer, or if the Cardinals send up a pinch hitter right away for Fryer. And that kind of cat and mouse, like who blinks first.
May depend on how badly Mike Matheny wants to give Yadier Molina an entire night off.
Exactly. I see Moss and Adams both getting ready to possibly hit in the Cardinal dugout. But if they send Fryer up there to hit, say, does that make the move where Roberts goes out and gets Hal and brings in Blanton, at which time you'd see one of the lefties for the Cardinals.
And after Fryer, the pitcher, Leake, due up. 1-2. Sharply hit. Sliding stop, Utley. Only play is to first. 2 down.
This is a really, really good play by Chase Utley, because this turns into a little bit of an in-between hop as he goes into his dive. This is not an easy play. Watch it pop up. See, and then the in-between hop, there's kind of some funny spin on it. He's able to secure it, and once he does that, he knows he just has to get to his feet, and he's got him. Watch this ball kind of hit and jump back on him. He does a good job of gaining a little bit of ground and getting the out. Really nice play by Chase.
And that's going to be all for Howell as Roberts has jogged out to the mound, already taken the ball from his left-hander. So the go-ahead run at second with 2 down. And Joe Blanton's on his way in for the Dodgers. Dodger Stadium, the site of our Sunday nighter tonight. The offense got going in the top of the third. Matt Carpenter with a home run, his 8th on the season. The bottom half of the inning, Corey Seager with the answer, his 5th home run of the season. That's all the scoring so far. It's top 7 right now, still tied at 1. As we take a look at our game track, brought to you by Carhartt. Good performances by Mike Leake, who's still in the game. Alex Wood, who is out of the game. Each team with 4 hits on the night. And the Cardinals with a runner at second. Jeremy Hazelbaker with 2 down here in the inning. A new pitcher and a pinch hitter. J.P. Howell, Dave Roberts, still friends, even though Dave Roberts just took J.P. Howell out of the game. And now Joe Blanton comes in. Joe Blanton has pitched extremely well out of the bullpen for the Dodgers right now. He's going to see a pinch hitter in Brandon Moss, who is batting for the catcher Eric Fryer, and they're going to put him on. And due up next was Mike Leake, and look who it is out in the on-deck circle. Of course, as soon as Fryer was lifted, Molina would have to come into the game. So Molina is going to bat for Leake. So that'll take Leake out of the game. And yeah, both managers having to go to their Sharpies and do a little bit of work on their scorecards right now. Things are changing in a hurry. Aaron, this could have gone 5 or 6 different ways depending on what kind of a move Dave Roberts made.
Yeah, and when they brought in Blanton initially, I think they were considering leaving Fryer in there, which actually surprised me. This does not now. You send the lefty up, you get the walk in. Now you set the stage for at least a good matchup where Yadier Molina's been so good in this situation, obviously. But conversely, the Dodgers have the matchup they want. Blanton's been really good in this situation. He's been really tough on right-handed hitters in kind of this second career for him as an important reliever here for the Dodgers.
2 on, 2 out. Molina with good career numbers against Blanton, 7 for 21 in his career. And prior to an 0 for 4 last night, he had been 9 for his last 16 in the previous 4 games. Doesn't hit for power like he used to, but he still makes great contact, puts the ball in play, hits for an average, and of course still as good as it gets behind the plate. And he lines the ball into left field, a base hit, and this will give the Cardinals the lead. It's going all the way down into the corner. Moss is now getting the wave, and it's a 2-run double for Yadier Molina.
He's been so good in these spots throughout his career. And one of the really good stories to start the season has been Yadier Molina being healthy and playing so well. And he gets just a kind of a nothing breaking ball in the heart of the plate. You see the bat stay in the hitting zone a long time and able to get enough of that and dump it down into the corner for a huge hit to give the Cardinals the lead, and the bench loves it. Mike Leake now a chance to win this game. He's fired up. And a big hit for a Cardinal team staring down a sweep against the Dodgers.
And now another intentional walk after the Molina double. Carpenter will be put on, and Blanton will face Piscotty.
Guys, leading up to that plate appearance, Yadier Molina in his career 6 for 27 as a pinch hitter, no extra base hits. That was the first.
And a big one, drives in a couple of runs to give the Cardinals the lead.
Right fielder number 55, Stephen Piscotty.
So 2 men on with 2 outs again, and here's Piscotty to face Blanton. Piscotty's 0 for 2, and he's also been hit by a pitch. A young player who has been extremely productive with runners in scoring position. And you wonder, guys, Matt Holliday's in the last year of a 7-year deal with the Cardinals. On the assumption that Holliday is not a Cardinal next year, just speculating, you wonder if Piscotty inherits the 3 spot in the lineup. Does he project to you guys to be that number 3 hitter?
Absolutely. I mean, just the way that he is so consistent, he has the power, and he's still growing as a hitter. And I think that's the scary thing about what he's able to do is you watch him in the batter's box. Just look at how calm he is right now. And this is when you're a younger hitter, you haven't even had a full year in the bigs. The way that he's able to carry himself, have very consistent at bats, but also just continue to improve. And that's when you think about a 3-hole hitter, that's what you want.
Base hit into left field off the glove of Turner. Molina will come in to score. 4-1 Cardinals. And the Boo Birds are out here at Dodger Stadium.
And it's towards the bullpen, and this has been the biggest Achilles heel for the Dodgers. So frustrating for this team, but you think about Stephen Piscotty, you talk about what he's able to do. I like the way that he works this at bat, and he's able to get a pitch, not that he can crush into the gap, but just put in the play to the left of the diving Justin Turner. He has the ability to go hit the gap when he needs to, but he understood in this situation, just stay long through the ball and leak it through.
Just both of those sliders to Yadier and then to Piscotty. Just no depth, just kind of rolling in there, spinning in there.
And both of those at bats coming, guys, right on the heels of an intentional walk.
Yep.
So sometimes the strategy works, sometimes it doesn't. It has not for the Dodgers tonight, as Molina and Piscotty have made the Dodgers pay. 3-run inning, 3-run lead. Cardinals with a chance to pick up a game on the Cubs today. The Cubs were beaten 2-1 by the Pirates. If the Cardinals win tonight, both the Cubs and the Pirates will still be 8 full games back of the Cubs. So even though they have lost 3 of their last 5, are still 27-9 on the season. And the inning is over. But a couple of big hits, none bigger than the pinch hit 2-run double by Yadier Molina, part of a 3-run inning that's given the Cardinals the lead. With the MLB.com at Bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment with Game Day, live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Download MLB.com at Bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone and tablet. Going bottom 7 to 4-1 Cardinals, and some changes for St. Louis. Brandon Moss will stay in the game at first base. Yadier Molina, of course, after pinch hitting, will remain in the game and catch. And the new pitcher for the Cardinals is the hard-throwing right-hander Jonathan Broxton, who is still throwing hard, still getting it done. Walks a little bit high, quite a bit high actually. 10 walks in 15 innings this year for Broxton. Now 31 years of age as he starts Howie Kendrick with a slider for a strike.
Yeah, fastball slider change. The fastball still gets up into the mid-90s, not that upper 90s, even 100 as it was at one point in his career, but still very effective.
Kendrick 1 for 2, has reached on an air and had a base hit. Another slider, and it misses well outside. A ball and a strike. You talked about Yasiel Puig's hands being very still. Here's a contrast. Into center field, and on comes Grichuk to make the catch. 1 down. Speaking of Puig, here he comes, and here he is. Smiling a little bit more this year. Maybe not hitting anymore this year, but some other things going well for him. Seems to be having some fun. He's all over the place on social media. He's doing anything and everything in every road town that the Dodgers visit. He has grounded out and then hit a long fly ball. Hit it well just to the right of straightaway center field, but Grichuk ran it down on the track, right up against the fence, in fact. Would have driven in a run, maybe 2, as he's taken all the way and looks at a strike from Broxton.
He thought it was out on contact and showed his frustration in the dugout. He's been amazing defensively in right field. It's been his bat. He wants to get going.
He has been chasing a lot, has trouble laying off that slider down and away from a righty. Things like swing and miss percentage, chase percentage among the highest in baseball.
And that's a great example there. He's late to be in position to pull the trigger. He was able to hold up, but that's a fastball that's kind of by him. So his timing is just not there right now. Go back to that fourth inning where I think he got a breaking ball, and it just got in on him a little bit. Maybe a little too deep, and he kind of inside out. It looked like he got the barrel to it. And then Grichuk made a really nice play against him, and then you see a little frustration let out from Puig.
Broxton on in relief of Mike Leake. 6 strong innings, just 1 run allowed.
Here's a mistake by Broxton here. This is where you want to expand the zone with Puig because he's chased so much here early in the season. But still, Jess, a little late with his timing on that pitch. And that's a breaking ball that's just kind of by him because I think he gets to position later than he needs to.
1-2 again. Fouls
when
back
you're
the
late,
fastball.
What's the biggest adjustment you make? You mentioned he chases. When you start chasing, it's because you then pull the trigger early. So when you feel that your hands are late, which on these last 3 swings, his hands have been late to get into position. So then what happens is you fly that front side and try to get to things earlier, and that's when you start chasing breaking balls out of the zone.
Lays off outside. Ball 2. Well, we talked about things like how much he chases, meaning swings at a pitch outside of the zone, how much he swings and misses. And again, this has been a problem for him when he has not been going well in his big league career. Can he lay off, especially down and away? Lays off again. 3-2.
And here you may see just 3-run lead, challenge him with the best fastball you've got at the top of the strike zone. Maybe let it work in and see if you can tie him up.
Slider grounded to short. Up with a Diaz, 2 down. So an 0 for 3 night now for Puig. Two down and the base is empty. The Cardinals up 4-1 in the bottom of the 7th here at Dodger Stadium. Still a beautiful place to come and watch a ball game after all these years. Peterson steps in 0 for 2. And he'll take outside ball 1 as Carl Crawford has emerged into the on-deck circle to pinch hit in the pitcher spot.
Jock just crushed the pitch, his last at bat, right to Holiday at the time at first base.
Bouncer to second, Wong on to first, and the inning is over. A good inning for Broxton. End of 7, and it's 4-1 Cardinals. Night Baseball on ESPN is presented by Taco Bell's Beefy Crunch and Cheesy Double Beef Burritos. And in part by Cheez-It Grooves, because at Cheez-It, real cheese matters. And La Quinta. Book now at LQ.com to get the lowest price guaranteed. La Quinta. Top 8 here at Dodger Stadium, along with Aaron Boone, Jessica Mendoza, and Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. And Joe Blanton facing Randall Grichuk to begin the top of the 8th, with the Cardinals leading 4-1. Grichuk, a couple of strikeouts and a ground out tonight. He'll be followed by Aledmus Diaz and then Jeremy Hazelbaker. Think anybody could have predicted, say, a year and a half ago that the 4, 5, 6, the middle of the order, would be Grichuk, Diaz, and Hazelbaker?
No way.
How about 3-4 months ago?
Yeah. Diaz spent most of last year at Double-A. Hazelbaker's a 28-year-old guy, never played in the majors before this year. As Grichuk rips one fair into the left field corner, and the Cardinals are teeing off on Joe Blanton tonight. Here comes Aledmus Diaz. We told you a little bit about him. Defected from Cuba at an international tournament in the Netherlands in 2012 due to a discrepancy in his age. It took him a couple of years before he could really start playing competitively again. That was in 2014. The Cardinals have not been very active in terms of signing players from Cuba. Diaz only getting a chance because Johnny Peralta was hurt, then Ruben Tejada was hurt. The defense has been a bit of a bumpy road, but the bat has been exceptional for Diaz so far this year. Shows bunt, pushes it foul.
And I don't know that it's been talked about enough about that layoff he had when he first did defect. You know, I mean, to not really play any competitive baseball for what, a year and a half, 2 years, Jess?
Yeah, it was almost 2 years, from July 12 until 14 when he was signed.
So you understand the slower development process, but the last year he has come on like gangbusters with the bat. And Mike Matheny really feels like over time he's going to be a very quality defensive shortstop, just going through some bumps in the road, some growing pains. But I think he's been blown away at the maturity, the poise, and what he thinks the ceiling is for this young shortstop.
Well, I think that's what I've been so impressed with, because it's the speed of the game. You know this, Booney. If you're not facing live pitching, live pitching for almost 2 years, it's the adrenaline. It's
formative years,
yeah,
too, man.
And that, to me, it's the reverse. Usually you see it in the at-bats, trying to create things. Everything's moving so fast. He's been so calm as a hitter, and it's just been the defense where it seems at times the game's moving too fast, even though he has the skills to be there.
1-2.
Guys, I talked to Matt Slater, who is the Cardinals director of player development, the other day, and he was talking about Diaz. You see here, 8 years old,
Yes.
guys.
8 years old, going yard off the wall.
Well, long after that, when the Cardinals were taking a look at him, they were just blown away by how mature he was, and that extended to last summer when he was taken off their 40-man roster and passed through waivers. You have to believe that there are a lot of teams that are probably kicking themselves for not putting in that waiver claim, considering how good Diaz looks.
Grichuk with some alert base running.
Really nice job by Grichuk. He reads this thing right away. It doesn't go far from Grandal, who pounces on it quickly, but Grichuk with that real good speed. But what made that possible was the outstanding read he got off of second base, in perfect position on his secondary lead, and with no outs, able to slide in ahead of that tag at third base.
Pass ball charge to Grandal. That'll force the infield in for the Dodgers. Already down 3 runs as the Cardinals bat here in the 8th. Now a ball drilled to deep left center field. Peterson will run it down, but Grichuk can easily tag and come in to score. MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, delivers everything you have come to expect and more. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 supported devices. Includes a free subscription to At Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. So a sac fly for Diaz has given the Cardinals a 5-1 lead. Left-hander Adam Liberatore coming on for the Dodgers. Provided by Goodyear, covering the bases with tires for superior performance all season long. Goodyear, more driven. Top 8 here at Dodger Stadium. The Cardinals now have a 5-1 lead as left-hander Adam Liberatore makes his 13th appearance of the season. He has not given up a run yet this year, covering 8 1/3 innings. He'll face the left-hand hitting Jeremy Hazelbaker. Liberatore, the 5th pitcher of the night for the Dodgers.
Done a nice job out of the pen for the Dodgers. Fastball, low 90s typically with it. Slider and a changeup.
Made 39 appearances out of the Dodger pen last year. Also spent some time at AAA. Fouled off again. 0-2. Double switch as Kike Hernandez has come into the game to play center field. So put the pitcher in the 8 spot and Hernandez in the 9 spot. Hernandez due to lead off the bottom half of the inning. Joe Blanton gave up 3 runs, all earned in 2/3 of an inning tonight. Gave up the Molina pinch hit 2-run double. Gave up the Piscotty RBI single and then the Grichuk double and eventually the Diaz sacrifice fly. The guy had been pitching extremely well this year. Just low. Hazelbaker tonight, a couple of pop-ups and an infield hit, as Blanton has the look of a man who did not have a fun night at the office. You go back to the starter, and Alex Wood certainly did his job. Got out of a jam too in the 6th inning, which was his last inning. But the bullpen has not delivered tonight for the Dodgers. Dodgers looking for their first 4-game winning streak of the season, but they'll have to mount quite a comeback if they're going to pull that off. Two down.
Good look at the slider from Liberatore. Looks like a fastball coming in. Watch the bottom just fall out. He starts it up around the thighs and breaks it down almost to the dirt. Hazelbaker was able to lay off it the last time, but not this time. Good action on the slider from Liberatore.
Now Colton Wong. Wong 1 for 3, had a base hit back in the 5th inning.
What the struggles with the Dodgers bullpen, I think a lot of times what gets lost is the season that Kenley Jansen, their closer, has been having and has had, because it's been a lot paid attention to the rotation, what they need to do, the lineups and how they change, but really Kenley has been the constant at the back end, just getting him the ball and giving him the opportunity. And there's been times that he's even asked for it in the 8th inning, wanting to help this team, wanting to do whatever he can to be able to get the ball quicker to him and help his team win games. He's even talked about being in the bullpen, calling the dugout, saying, look, yeah, you guys need me. I see we're struggling a little bit here. I can help us out. I mean, how many closers are willing to push it that far?
Pulled foul, 1-2. Each team with a run in the 3rd on solo home runs. Carpenter for the Cardinals, Seager for the Dodgers, and the Cardinals breaking the tie with 3 runs in the 7th inning. The big hit, a pinch hit 2-run double by Yadier Molina, who was supposed to get the night off, but his services were required and he came through. 2-2 to count on Wong. Wow.
Wow.
We haven't seen many of those.
That's impressive.
Yep.
That's time. Some serious art. Question mark?
Full count. That's some work. That's a labor-intensive project right there.
What time did that start?
I saw him yesterday, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Got Fernando.
Is that Kike on there?
Yep.
Yeah. Something with bananas and a rally. And he's got it all.
Ground ball down to first. Inning over. Another run for the Cardinals and a 5-1 lead going to the bottom of the 8th. in the oldest part of downtown Los Angeles, part of El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historic Monument. The tree-shaded pedestrian mall marketplace has craft shops, restaurants, very popular tourist destination. It's even got the Cardinals dancing. Although Adam Wainwright does not need an excuse to dance or have fun. Well, if you're looking for more baseball coming your way, we've got some for you. Tomorrow night in Kansas City, the Royals will host the Red Sox. It'll be the Nationals and the Mets, two of the top dogs in the National League East on a Wednesday night baseball. Then 1 week from tonight, we'll be at AT&T Park in San Francisco, the Giants and the Cubs. Left-hander Kevin Seagrist on the mound for St. Louis as we go bottom 8. This guy has been one of the tougher lefties in the game in recent years, and so far this season, no exception.
21 Ks to just 3 walks and over 14 innings of work, but has really emerged as one of the premier setup men in the game. And typically throughout his career, he's been a reverse split guy, meaning he has more success against right-handed hitters. This year, getting them both out. Fastball, low mid 90s, and a really good changeup. That dance-off stuff was pretty good.
Well,
Waino was cutting it up.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he didn't point up here. I mean, he would have lost.
That's how the Dodger dugout was.
They wanted no part of it.
I mean, he kept trying too.
Yeah.
He'd do his move and he'd point out anything. You got it?
Remember, they had something going on in the division series a couple of years ago, the national anthem before the game, and I think it was Scott Van Slyke for the Dodgers, and I'm trying to remember who the Cardinal was, and the deal was just stay out on the field as long as you can. Everybody else went back in the dugout. The game was about to start. Van Slyke didn't move, and whoever the Cardinal was didn't move. And eventually the umpire had to throw both of them off the field because the game had to start. Pitchers warming up, batters coming to the box, and you still got 2 guys. Who was it?
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly.
Of course,
there you go.
Were they dancing? They were just
No, just standing still as a statue, just not moving after the national anthem. Boys will be boys.
Big game of chicken.
Yeah. After Hernandez, back to the top of the order for Utley and Seager. 6 good innings for Mike Leake tonight, allowing just a run on 4 hits. Jonathan Broxton with a 3-up, 3-down 7th. And now Seagrist here in the 8th. High fly ball left center, but playable. Aaron, from your experience, is Dodger Stadium April, May really that much different than Dodger Stadium July, August in terms of how far the ball goes?
No, it's more of a day-night thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, in a day game, it flies, and it's a great place to hit the ball. Completely different story 3 hours later in the evening when the sun goes down and
the marine layer
that gets a little moisture in the air. And it becomes one of the real good pitcher ballparks.
Of course, we got lucky tonight with the shadows because it was a cloudy day. The shadows didn't play a part because usually you don't see a lot of offense, at least in those first few innings, because of the famous shadows here at Chavez Ravine. 5 o'clock start.
Yeah, I got knuckles from a few hitters today going. Those clouds over.
Yeah,
Keep those clouds in.
Yep.
Was never a factor tonight.
Utley tonight 0 for 3. Getting the lion's share of the job out at second base for the Dodgers. Howie Kendrick is there every now and again. Here's the 1-2 from Seagrist. In on his hands, and it's fouled off.
And that's what'll be kind of interesting through the course of the season. Utley right now swinging a hot bat. Saw some defense already this game, what he can do. But Kendrick, I mean, he's the veteran guy, and he's in left field tonight, but someone that is very used to playing that position. So many different players that can do different things, but you see a different lineup, each night. And what happens if they all are hot?
And the interesting thing will be to see how guys that have been everyday players in their career, Utley, who's flourished in this role, Kendrick, Carl Crawford, how they are
Another fly ball, 2 down.
playing a little less frequently, not every day, in these matchup type situations. Can they flourish as they get later in the career in those smaller roles? That remains to be seen. So far, Chase Utley has really flourished.
You can see 5 different players have started a game in left field, 4 at second, 4 at third. Dave Roberts says he told his team right early at the beginning of spring training, this is the way it's going to be. Everybody's going to play. Everybody's got to be flexible. He maintains nobody's complained. Of course, the more you win, the more that solves some potential problems.
And I think what Dave does a good job of so far, too, is he communicates that. So if Howie Kendrick has a hot night, he told him that morning, you're not playing tomorrow. I already know what the setup's going to be. I already know who we're facing. So they have an idea and they can wrap their mind up. They don't show up the next day like, hey, it was 3 for 4. I should be in this lineup. What did I do? And that's important. And if he's consistent with that, I think he's going to get a consistent response from his platoon players.
Corey Seager homered to back in the third. That's the only run of the night for the Dodgers.
The bigger question I have is, when you're the LA Dodgers and you have the highest payroll in Major League Baseball, is this the way to go? Where you're having a bunch of, investing so much in that roster spot 20 to 25, but then even beyond, where you're building in that depth instead of having a number of star.
Rocket to right center. Another home run for Seager, his second of the night. They're going to be investing in that guy before long.
They're looking for stars.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 tonight, this weekend, great at bats, consistent in the plate coverage, the ability that he has. You look at how long his swing is. Look at the length and leverage that he has, and this is what a guy Corey Seager's size is able to do. That's how he gets the power. So smooth, but you see explosive with that lower half. Threw the ball long. That's textbook right there.
His third home run in the last 2 games, his 6th of the season, as Justin Turner steps in.
He reminds me of John Olerud.
In what way?
The way his height, his size, the way he's just so seemingly swings so easy, long through the zone, pop.
I think he's got a low resting heart rate.
I do.
Calm guy.
I do.
Yep. Olerud's was down in like the 40s or something. Olerud had a crazy low heart rate.
And
I think Corey's in the 50s.
Oh, just the bubblegum chewing. You notice he's always got it in his mouth. Only thing that seems to be moving quickly.
6 for 13 with 3 home runs in the series against the Cardinals. But as you can see, not a whole lot else going on offensively for the Dodgers tonight. There's a strike at the knees, 3-1.
Besides Seager's 2 homers, there hasn't been the extra base hit. And Justin Turner, this is your extra base hit guy. He's in the 3 spot. This is his job in that spot. Been quiet tonight. He had a single early on, but they're waiting for him to start hitting the gaps, start hitting some home runs. He's got 1 on the season so far.
And you wonder, having the microfracture surgery, so he wasn't able to have a normal offseason in regards to training and getting his body, in the physical condition that he normally would. It's a lot of rehabbing. So you wonder if that's had a little effect in the early going and throughout the year, maybe, in his power production.
Swing and a miss, and the inning is over. Well, they may be losing the game, but better than 51,000 here tonight enjoying what Corey Seager has brought to the ballgame tonight. 2 home runs for the youngster. After we're done here at Dodger Stadium, kick back with SportsCenter at night with John Anderson and Kevin Connors. They'll have all the highlights and analysis from Game 7 between the Heat and Raptors, the Players' Championship, Major League Baseball, Sharks, Blues Game 1 and more. Coming up next year on ESPN, streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. It is 5-2 Cardinals as they come to bat here in the top of the 9th inning. Liberatore is still in the game for the Dodgers. Brandon Moss pinch hit and was intentionally walked back in the 7th, immediately preceding the biggest hit of the game, which was the Yadier Molina pinch hit 2-run double. Five runs, 7 hits, and an error for the Cardinals. 2-5-0 for the Dodgers. 1-1 is outside, ball 2. In the Cardinal bullpen, closer Trevor Rosenthal has started to throw. And would figure to come in for sure if the Cardinals don't score. Even if they do, once he's up and hot, as Mike Matheny says, he might still bring him in. They've got an off day tomorrow. Popped him up on the infield. Turner can't see it. Seager can and makes the catch. Turner had no idea where that ball was. Yadier Molina with the biggest hit of the game tonight.
And he came in off the bench. His first extra base hit as a pinch hitter. And just what Yadi Molina does so well. Being able to just get to contact, find a place on the field, and put this team up. Huge at bat in this game, the difference. His last at bat.
Eight-time Gold Glover, 4-time Platinum Glove Award winner. Folks don't know what that is. 5 years ago, Major League Baseball created a new award, the best overall defender in each league. And of the 5 years that it's been handed out in the National League, Yadier Molina's won it 4 times.
I think you could make the case that he's been as important a player to his team over the bulk of his career as any other player. I think the impact that he has is, look at a great look there of all the Gold Glove. The impact that he has on a daily basis with the defense, with the pitching staff, you know, is sometimes immeasurable, and he gets a lot of credit for it, but it's credit much deserved.
And when his hits come, I mean, that's what I always look at. Like, yes, we pay attention to numbers and average, and to me, Yadi Molina in his last at bat is a perfect example of what he does. He understands the situation, what to do with his swing, how to get to contact, just the ability to just get runs in when needed most.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count. Cardinals as a team this year have had tremendous success pinch hitting, and we've seen that tonight. The Molina double, they're 23 for 64 pinch hitting, which is one of the toughest things to do in baseball. Pinch hitting numbers are never as good as overall hitting numbers in baseball.
I think they've got like 7 home runs. 8 home runs now.
Yeah. Hazelbaker's got 3 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it just tells me they're prepared when they're in the dugout, that they are in the game, because that's the hardest part. Is it's hard to not check out when your name's not penciled into that lineup.
Chased a ball in the dirt, and Grandal will fire down to first to complete the strikeout.
Might have been the split there, which I earlier called a slider. That might have been the split there that he drops down into the dirt. Grandal does a good job of going down and making sure he keeps that in front of him.
So 2 down in the inning, and back to the top of the order now. Liberatore will face Matt Carpenter. He's had a very good night. A fly ball to the wall and right, then a home run to right center, a walk, and an intentional walk since.
Interesting too, the cat and mouse game over the last couple years with Matt Carpenter, known classically as a very patient hitter. So a lot of pitchers last year started coming at him early in the count. So then he adjusted, started swinging, being more aggressive early in the count. That's why he had success. A lot of times was those first few pitches. Now this season reverting back, knowing that he does swing early. You'll see them kind of spread the strike zone out. And so now he's gone back to be more patient. And that's hard to do. It's hard to change who you are and kind of follow how teams, when they adapt to you, to adapt right back.
Foul ball.
What I like is he's such a smart hitter, and that great patience is in his DNA. That's who he is. But over time, and why we've seen him just become a power presence now at the plate, is the understanding of, in certain counts or just certain patterns that pitchers get into, he will really zone in on one particular pitch, one particular spot, and take his shots at, hey, I'm going to put a charge in this ball. I'm going to try and, this is an extra base swing, this pitch, because I'm looking in a particular place. I think it started to happen for him a couple of postseasons ago. He carried it into last year, and now continues to be that patience power combination at the top of this Cardinal lineup.
The 1-2 again, down and in. Well, some of the home runs that we were talking about in the postseason, 2014 Division Series against Clayton Kershaw in Game 1, and Game 2 against lefty J.P. Howell, a 2-run homer to tie the game at 2. And then in Game 3 with Ryu on the mound, another home run for Matt Carpenter. 3 home runs off 3 different left-handed pitchers in the same series. In the air down the left field line, Turner called off by Seager, and the inning is over. We're going to the bottom of the ninth. 3-run lead, save situation. Trevor Rosenthal on his way in for St. Louis. Night, if you're an NBA fan, it starts with NBA Countdown at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. The Draft Lottery at 8 o'clock, and then in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. 8:30 Eastern Time on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app as well. We're going to bottom 9 here at Dodger Stadium. A 5-2 lead for the Cardinals over the Dodgers. Play ball weekend, where Major League Baseball has done a great job at incorporating Little League Baseball into the Major League scene. If only the kids would have some fun. I think they've had a good night. They were down on the field where they got a first base tutorial from Adrian Gonzalez before the game. Play ball. Kids taking over MLB ballparks all weekend long. Around Baseball is part of the Play Ball initiative. Here's Trevor Rosenthal. On to try to lock it up, pick up a save for the Cardinals. They're up 5-2, going to bottom 9. Adrian Gonzalez takes outside ball 1. It'll be Gonzalez, Grandal, and Kendrick. The middle of the lineup for the Dodgers. Against Rosenthal, one of the hardest throwers in baseball.
At mid to upper 90s, typically with the fastball that he'll throw really over 80% of the time. Occasional changeup, and every now and then he'll spin one.
Whoa! Every now and again he'll hit the mascot.
He'll hit the bull. I think this was an attempt at a changeup. Yeah, and it just kind of. Yachty lost interest at one point.
Rosenthal only with 6 saves, and that speaks to the kind of all-or-nothing nature with the offense we were talking about that the Cardinals have had. They've blown a lot of people out. They haven't been in as many close games as a lot of other teams.
And that's what kind of defined this team last year. I mean, they had so many close games that they won because they were mostly pitching and defense, lower scoring. In fact, 42 of their 100 wins came on wins 3 runs or less. They're 0 for 11 so far this season in the same situation. So it's kind of been a reverse. This could be the first win of the season, 3 runs or less.
Looking to pick up a game on the Cubs, who lost earlier today to the Pirates. A win for St. Louis, and both the Cardinals and Pirates would be 8 back over the Cubs. And Gonzalez draws a leadoff walk.
Wow, stunned he went back to the changeup there. After the 2-2 changeup, that was a pretty good pitch down and out of the zone where Gonzalez was able to lay off it. I thought for sure he'd come back with the fastball, having not commanded the changeup yet. And this is another one that just kind of never gets a feel of, misses bad with it up and out of the zone. And that's now 10 walks on the season and 11 innings of work for Rosenthal. A bit of an issue early in the season.
Now high ball 1 to Grandal. Rosenthal walked 3 in a row in his last appearance. Walks the first batter he faces here in this appearance, and there's some concern. There he's in with his first strike of this at bat. 1-1 after walking the leadoff hitter. There's some concern as now Sung Hwan Oh is up in the bullpen for the Cardinals. Mike Matheny, aware of obviously of the recent control issues that Rosenthal has had, doesn't want to let this one get out of hand. Oh has pitched extremely well. Walk Gonzalez, 2-1 on Grandal. Probably about half the crowd still here, but they're making twice the noise that the sellout was making earlier tonight. Three and one. If Rosenthal walks him, can O get ready quickly enough that Matheny could contemplate the move after this batter?
I'd be surprised if it was after this batter. I think he's going to at least give his closer a few hitters in this inning, especially with the 3-run lead and knowing what Rosenthal's capable of. But what I find interesting right now is with the lefty up and no speed at first, that Moss is holding Gonzalez on.
Full count.
I mean, I know you don't want to get off too much because you want to keep the double play in order, but you can stay right behind him and gain a lot of range, and Gonzalez isn't going to get off much.
Back-to-back 96-mile-an-hour fastballs, and the count still 3-2 on Grandal. Kendrick on deck, Puig behind him. Out of play. Would you be shocked to see anything other than a fastball for the rest of this at bat?
I would, just because he hasn't shown in any of his pitches the ability to throw that changeup in the zone. A good pitch for him typically, and with a 3-run lead, you don't want to get the tying run to the plate with a pitch you haven't felt yet.
Swing and a miss for out number 1.
After 2 back-to-back lower in the zone fastballs, he comes up. And we saw Grandal be able to foul back 96. It's really tough to foul off 96 when it's letter high. And that's exactly where Rosenthal was able to locate.
Now Kendrick 1 for 3. And I start to wonder if Molina will put down anything other than just one finger, and if Rosenthal would ever shake him off the way things have gone with the off-speed stuff. Seems to be locked in now with the fastball. O continues to throw in the bullpen just in case. Puig waiting on deck.
Before that last pitch, they finally moved Moss off the bag just behind Adrian Gonzalez at first to try and gain a little bit of range. Still kind of jockeying him over there to keep him somewhat close.
With 4 straight fastballs, if I'm Howie Kendrick, I mean, you almost sell out a little bit just knowing, all right, it's coming hard. I'm going to give everything even with 2 strikes. Get early on this fastball.
Ground ball to the right side. To second one, back to first. Double play, and the Cardinals win it. They salvaged the final game of the series with a 5-2 win. Mike Leake picks up the win. Trevor Rosenthal picks up the save. Yadier Molina with a big hit of the night. The pinch hit 2-run double in the 7th to break the tie. And the Dodgers fall a game back of the Giants. The Cardinals 8 back of the Cubs in the National League Central. Good pitchers duel for most of the night. Well, the Cardinal bullpen was better than the Dodger bullpen, offsetting a couple of home runs for Corey Seager. The Cardinals win 5-2. For Aaron Boone, Jessica Mendoza, Buster Olney, and our entire Sunday Night Baseball crew, I'm Dan Schulman saying thanks for watching and good night from Dodger Stadium. Sports Center's coming up next. A busy show heading your way with Kevin Connors and John Anderson.